My family broke into my inherited beach house with a moving truck while I was at work, because apparently being single means I don't deserve property. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Original post. AITA for refusing to give up my inherited beach house to my brother's family? I, 31M, need to get this off my chest because I'm starting to question my own sanity. 2 years ago, my grandmother passed away after a long battle with cancer. We were incredibly close. I spent every summer with her at her beach house growing up, and even as an adult, I'd visit her regularly. She taught me to surf, showed me the best hidden spots along the coast, and we'd spend hours talking about life while watching the sunset from her deck. When her will was read, I was shocked to learn she'd left me the beach house. Along with the deed came a handwritten letter that I still keep in my nightstand. In it, she wrote about how she'd watched me find peace in that house, how the ocean seemed to heal something in me, and how she wanted me to always have that sanctuary. She specifically mentioned that she knew I needed a place to escape from the pressures of modern life. My brother Michael, 33M, received an equal inheritance in cash, roughly the same value as the beach house. My father David, 58M, inherited her main residence, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs worth considerably more than either of our inheritances. Everyone seemed satisfied at the time. The beach house isn't some mansion, it's a modest 3-bedroom cottage built in the 1960s, about 2 hours from where I live. It needs constant maintenance, which I've lovingly provided. I've kept Grandma's wind chimes on the porch, her collection of sea glass in the windows, and even her ancient coffee maker that only works if you hit it just right. I work in tech with a demanding schedule that often runs 60 to 70 hours a week, so I mainly use it on weekends and for the occasional longer stay when I can work remotely. It's become essential to my mental health, my place to decompress, surf, read, and just exist without the constant ping of notifications and demands. 6 months ago, things started to shift. It began with small comments from my father during family gatherings. "Such a shame that beautiful house sits empty during the week," he'd say. Or, "3 bedrooms for one person seems excessive." I'd laugh it off, explaining that I was there as often as I could be and that maintaining it was a labor of love. My brother started joining in these comments about 3 months ago. He'd mention how his kids, Christopher, 5M, and Emma, 3F, were getting cramped in their current home. How the schools near the beach were supposedly excellent. How unfair it was that I got the prize of the inheritance while he just got money, conveniently forgetting that he used that money for a boat and a kitchen renovation. Last Sunday, during our monthly family dinner at my parents' house, they tag-teamed me in what felt like a planned attack. We'd barely finished the main course when my father cleared his throat and launched into this prepared speech about family resources being used efficiently and how Grandma, while meaning well, couldn't have foreseen how the family's needs would evolve. He actually used corporate buzzwords like maximizing utility and resource allocation. Michael jumped in immediately, painting this picture of his kids growing up by the beach, learning to surf like we did, building sandcastles every morning. His wife Jennifer, 32F, chimed in with research she'd apparently done on the local schools, showing me rankings on her phone and talking about how the sea air would be so good for Christopher's asthma, a condition I'd never heard him mention before. The culmination was my father suggesting that I should either gift the house to Michael or sell it to him for a family discount of about 40% below market value. When I asked why Michael couldn't just buy a beach house with his inheritance money, Jennifer actually laughed and said he'd already spent it on responsible family investments, aka the boat he uses twice a year and their kitchen that looks like it belongs in a magazine but that their kids aren't allowed to eat in. I reminded them that Grandma left specific instructions in her will, that she wanted me to have that house. I even offered to read them her letter, though that felt too personal to share. My father's response chilled me. Mom was getting sentimental at the end. She wasn't thinking clearly about what's best for the family's future. When I firmly said no, Michael accused me of being selfish, saying I just use it as a bachelor pad for weekend parties, which is laughable to anyone who knows me. My idea of a wild weekend is reading 3 books and falling asleep on the deck at 9 p.m. My father shook his head and said he was disappointed in my lack of family values and my inability to see the bigger picture. My mother Barbara, 57F, who had been silent during dinner, later pulled me aside in the kitchen. She said she understood why I wanted to keep the house but asked if I'd consider some kind of timeshare arrangement. Maybe they could have it during the summer months when the kids are off school, she suggested. When I pointed out that summer is when I use it most, she sighed and said I was putting her in an impossible position. Even my girlfriend Lisa, 29F, who's usually completely supportive, asked on the drive home if maybe I was being too rigid. She knows how much the house means to me, she's seen me there, seen how my entire demeanor changes when we cross the bridge onto the island. But she also wondered if there was some compromise that could keep the family peace. I felt betrayed that even she was suggesting I should consider giving up my sanctuary. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the mornings I'd watched the sunrise from Grandma's deck, coffee in hand, planning my day of surfing. The nights I'd spent there after brutal work weeks, slowly feeling human again. The weekend I spent there after my last relationship ended, walking the beach for hours and finally feeling like myself again. How can I explain to them that it's not just a house? It's where I go to remember who I am. Am I really the asshole for wanting to keep my inherited property that was specifically left to me? The house means everything to me. It's not just about the property value or having a weekend getaway. It's about having a place where I can breathe, where I can exist without pretense or pressure. It's about honoring my grandmother's wishes and the bond we shared. But my entire family is making me feel like I'm some kind of selfish monster for not handing over my inheritance to my brother just because he chose to have kids. Update 1. Posted 3 weeks later. Update. They're escalating and I'm at my breaking point. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. The overwhelming consensus that I'm NTA gave me the confidence to stand firm, though I've been second-guessing myself constantly. Your comments about family entitlement and honoring my grandmother's wishes really resonated. Unfortunately, things have escalated beyond what I could have imagined. 2 weeks ago, I left work early on Friday, around 2 p.m. instead of my usual 7 p.m., because I'd had a particularly brutal week and just needed to get to the beach house. The entire drive, I felt my shoulders slowly relaxing, looking forward to my weekend routine. Arrive, open all the windows to let the sea air in, make a simple dinner, and fall asleep to the sound of waves. As I turned onto the coastal road, I noticed the increased traffic but didn't think much of it. Tourist season was starting. But when I pulled up to my house, my stomach dropped. My father's BMW was in the driveway, along with Michael's SUV and Jennifer's sedan. My spot, where I always park in the shade of the old oak tree Grandma planted, was blocked. I sat in my car for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. Through the windows, I could see movement inside my house. The front door was wide open, Grandma's wind chimes singing in the breeze as if nothing was wrong. When I walked in, the scene was surreal. My father was at the dining table with papers spread out in front of him. Michael and Jennifer were in the kitchen, Jennifer cooking with pans while Michael opened a beer from fridge. The kids were in the living room, toys scattered everywhere, watching cartoons on my TV. They'd even moved some of the furniture around. My father looked up casually and said, "James, good you're here. We're having a family meeting about the beach house situation." I thought neutral ground would be best for a productive discussion. Neutral ground. I sputtered. "This is my house." Jennifer turned from the stove with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're making tacos. There's plenty if you're hungry. I hope you don't mind, but your spice rack was a bit lacking, so I brought some from home." The audacity left me speechless. My nephew Christopher ran up to me, holding one of Grandma's old painted seashells I keep on the mantel. "Uncle James, Daddy says this is going to be my room." He pointed to the guest room, the one with the ocean view that I use as my office, where I'd spent countless hours working remotely, finding inspiration in the horizon. I tried to stay calm. "Everyone needs to leave. This is trespassing." Michael laughed, actually laughed. "Trespassing? We're family. Dad has a key. Family doesn't trespass, they visit." "I changed the locks 3 weeks ago," I said slowly. "How did you get in?" My father had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. The property management company in town still had the old key on file from when Mom used them. I explained the situation, and they understood about family needing access. I was shaking with rage. Not only had they broken into my house, but they'd manipulated a local business that my grandmother had trusted for decades. I noticed Jennifer's notebook then. It was open to sketches of kid-friendly renovations, including removing Grandma's built-in bookshelves to make room for toy storage. "You have 1 hour to leave," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Or I'm calling the police." That's when my father stood up, his full height meant to be intimidating. "You would call the police on your own family? Your grandmother would be ashamed. She valued family above everything. She valued respect and boundaries," I shot back. "Which is why she left me this house, because she knew I'd take care of it, not treat it like I'm entitled to it." The situation deteriorated quickly. Jennifer started crying, saying I was traumatizing the children by threatening their parents. Michael accused me of being exactly what's wrong with millennials: selfish, materialistic, and putting property over people. My father pulled out his phone and called my mother, putting her on speaker so she could talk sense into me. The final straw was when I went to use the bathroom and found Michael in my bedroom, my private space, with a measuring tape, checking if their California king bed would fit. He'd even moved some of my things around to visualize the new layout. On my dresser, next to the photo of Grandma and me from my college graduation, he'd placed a sticky note that said, "Move to garage?" I lost it. Completely lost it. I yelled at him to get out, that he had no right to even think about my private space. He tried to gaslight me, saying I was overreacting and that he was just planning for the inevitable. I called the police then and there. While we waited, my father tried every manipulation tactic in the book. He talked about family legacy, about how Grandma's house should be filled with children's laughter, about how I was choosing to be alone and bitter. Jennifer packed up her taco supplies with theatrical sighs, telling the kids that Uncle James didn't want them there. Christopher started crying, asking why I was being mean. When the officers arrived, I showed them my deed, explained the situation, and showed them text messages from 3 weeks ago explicitly stating that no one was welcome at the property without my express permission. My father tried to argue it was a civil matter, a family dispute that didn't require police intervention. The officers disagreed and told everyone to leave immediately. As they gathered their things, Michael hissed at me that I'm everything wrong with my generation, and that I'll die alone in that house. Jennifer loudly told the children that some people value things more than family. My father said nothing, but the look he gave me was meant to convey complete disappointment and disgust. After they left, I found they'd already made small changes. They'd moved my coffee maker to make room for a kid's snack station. There were juice boxes in my fridge. They'd even started a grocery list on my whiteboard, crossing off items I had listed and adding their own. The violation felt so much deeper than just trespassing. They tried to erase me from my own space. I spent that night installing new locks, smart locks this time, with unique codes I can control remotely. I also installed security cameras around the property. I've since hired a lawyer to send a formal cease and desist letter to all of them, making it clear that any further attempts to enter the property will result in criminal charges. The family fallout has been swift and brutal. My mother calls daily, crying about how the family is torn apart. Extended relatives I haven't spoken to in years are reaching out to tell me I'm being unreasonable. My cousin posted on Facebook about how some people forget where they come from and think they're too good for family. I've had to block most of them. Lisa has been supportive but frustrated with the drama. She doesn't understand why they can't just respect my boundaries. She suggested selling the house just to end the conflict, but I refuse. Why should I give up my inheritance, my sanctuary, because they feel entitled to it? I'm heading back this weekend, and honestly, I'm anxious. Part of me expects to find windows broken or worse. The peace I once found there feels tainted now, but I'm determined to reclaim it. This is my house, my inheritance, my connection to my grandmother. I won't let them take that from me. Update 2, posted 5 weeks after the first update. Final update, the nuclear option. I'm sitting in a hotel room in a state of shock, alternating between rage and disbelief. I need to document this while it's fresh, partly for legal reasons and partly because I need to process what just happened. Yesterday, Friday, I decided to leave work at noon. I'd been anxious all week about returning to the beach house, but I figured arriving in broad daylight would be safer. The drive felt different this time. Instead of my usual relaxation, I spent 2 hours with my shoulders tense, checking my security camera app every time I hit a red light. Everything looked normal on the cameras, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As I turned onto my street, I immediately knew my instincts were right. There were cars everywhere, Michael's SUV, a large moving truck, my father's BMW, and several cars I didn't recognize. My security app hadn't alerted me because they'd apparently figured out how to approach from the beach side, avoiding the cameras. I pulled over a few houses down and called my lawyer. He advised me to document everything and call the police immediately if they were inside. With shaking hands, I started recording video on my phone and walked toward my house. The front door was wide open. Not just unlocked, wide open, with boxes stacked on the porch. I could hear voices inside, multiple people talking and laughing. Through the window, I could see strangers, movers, carrying furniture. My furniture out, other furniture in. I walked through my own front door to find my worst nightmare realized. The living room was in chaos. My couch was gone, replaced with Michael and Jennifer's sectional. My grandmother's antique coffee table was pushed against the wall, a child-proofed monstrosity in its place. The walls, I'd spent a weekend last year carefully touching up the paint, were already marked with crayon. Jennifer was in the kitchen, unpacking. Not visiting, not having a meeting, unpacking. She was placing her dishes in my cabinets, humming to herself like this was perfectly normal. My grandmother's china, which I use every Sunday morning for breakfast just like she did, was boxed up on the counter labeled garage. My brother's kids were running around with their toys everywhere. Emma had taken over the sun nook where I keep my surfboards, her dollhouse exactly where my board rack used to be. Christopher was jumping on bubble wrap in the hallway, shouting about his new house. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was my father. He was standing in the middle of it, all like a general surveying his troops, directing movers with my belongings. "That can go to the garage," he said about my bookshelf. "We won't be needing that," about my bar cart. I stood there for a full 30 seconds before Jennifer noticed me. And when she did, she smiled. She actually smiled and said, "Oh, James, we weren't expecting you until tonight. Don't worry, we saved your bedroom for you. We thought you'd want to keep visiting on weekends." Keep visiting weekends in my own house. "Get out," I said, surprised at how calm my voice sounded. "Get out right now." That's when Michael appeared from the back deck where he'd been assembling what looked like a massive playset. "Jim, buddy, let's talk about this rationally. We're already here. The kids are enrolled in school starting Monday. Fighting this is just going to hurt everyone." My father approached me then, putting his hand on my shoulder in that condescending way he has. "Son, it's time to face reality. You're a single man with a demanding job who barely uses this place. Michael has a family that needs it. Your grandmother would understand, family needs change." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. That's when everything exploded. My father tried to grab my phone, actually physically tried to take it from me. "Don't be ridiculous," he shouted. "This is a family matter." I stepped back, keeping the phone to my ear. "My family is stealing my house. Send police immediately." Michael came charging in from the deck. "Stealing? We're your family. Mom and Dad gave me life too. Why do you get everything?" "I don't get everything," I shouted back, finally losing my composure. "You got the same inheritance I did. You spent yours on a boat and a kitchen renovation. That's not my fault." Jennifer started crying, loud, theatrical sobs. "How can you do this to children? They think this is their home now. We told them they'd grow up by the beach." "Then you lied to them," I said. "Just like you're lying now, pretending you have any right to be here." My father, red-faced with rage, dropped the bomb. "I've already spoken to lawyers. You gave me a key originally. That establishes a pattern of family access. We're establishing residency. You'll have to formally evict us, and that takes months. By then, you'll come to your senses and realize this is what's best for everyone." "I changed the locks," I said. "You broke in." "Proved we had previous access," he countered. "The property management company confirmed I've had a key for years. No breaking required." That's when I realized this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. They'd planned this. They'd consulted lawyers, manipulated local businesses, enrolled the kids in school, hired movers. This was a coordinated attack on my property and my life. The 911 operator had heard everything and assured me officers were on the way. The next 15 minutes were the longest of my life. Jennifer alternated between sobbing and trying to guilt me, showing me the kids' drawings of their beach house. Michael paced like a caged animal, occasionally throwing out insults about my selfishness, my inability to maintain relationships, how I'd die alone surrounded by money instead of family. My father was the worst. He turned cold, calculating. He started talking about Grandma's real wishes, how she told him privately that she hoped I'd grow up and share with my brother. When I called him a liar, he said I was too blinded by greed to see the truth. The movers, to their credit, had stopped working and were clearly uncomfortable. One of them approached me quietly and said they'd been told this was a family property transfer, that all parties were in agreement. He showed me the work order. Michael had forged my signature. When the police arrived, 3 cars, lights flashing, the narrative my family tried to spin was incredible. My father claimed I'd agreed to let Michael try out living there for the summer. Jennifer wailed about their children being made homeless. Michael accused me of having rich boy syndrome and said I was probably on drugs to be acting so irrationally. I showed the officers my documentation, the deed, the cease and desist letter my lawyer had sent, text messages explicitly denying them access, and the security footage of them arriving with a moving truck. The forged signature on the moving company's paperwork sealed it. The lead officer told everyone they needed to leave immediately or face arrest for breaking and entering, criminal trespassing, and fraud. That's when my 5-year-old nephew, sweet Christopher, who I've always adored, ran up to me with tears streaming down his face. "Uncle James, Why are you stealing our house? Daddy said you don't need it and we do. Don't you love us? My heart broke. This innocent child had been weaponized against me. They'd filled his head with lies and now he thought I was the villain. I knelt down and said, I love you very much, buddy. But this isn't your house. Your daddy made a mistake. Michael yanked his son away from me. Don't talk to him, Chris. Uncle James cares more about houses than family. As the police supervised their exit, the scene was chaos. Jennifer had to repack boxes while sobbing about school enrollment fees they'd lose. Michael loaded his kids into the car, loudly telling them that some people are just selfish and that's why they end up alone. My father said nothing to me directly but told the officers this was family business, and I'd regret getting law enforcement involved. The movers had to reload everything and take it back. It took 3 hours to get everyone out and my belongings back in place. Well, in place is generous. My house looked like a tornado had hit it. My furniture was scattered, my kitchen was in chaos, my personal items were stuffed in random boxes. After everyone left, I called a locksmith for an emergency visit. While waiting, I discovered the full extent of what they'd done. They'd forwarded mail to my address in Michael's name. There were children's life preservers hanging in my shed. They'd installed child safety gates at the top and bottom of the stairs. In my office, my desk had been dismantled and pushed against the wall to make room for bunk beds that were halfway assembled. The locksmith installed new high-security locks that can't be picked or duplicated without my authorization. I also called a security company to install a comprehensive system with cameras covering every angle, motion sensors, and direct connection to local police. That night, I couldn't stay in the house. It felt violated, like a crime scene. I drove to a hotel an hour away and finally broke down. Not just tears, full-body sobs. The house my grandmother left me, my sanctuary, had been turned into a battlefield. I've spent today with my lawyer. We're filing charges for breaking and entering, fraud, the forged signature, and seeking a restraining order against all of them. The lawyer says their residency plan was legally nonsense and likely came from some sovereign citizen website rather than actual legal advice. We're also suing for damages. They did about $3,000 worth of damage to the walls and floors during their move-in. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. My mother left 17 voicemails, each more hysterical than the last. Extended family members are calling me a monster. Someone, I suspect Jennifer, posted on social media about how I called the police on children and made a family homeless out of greed. I've received death threats from people I went to high school with. But here's the thing, I'm done. I'm done feeling guilty. I'm done being manipulated. I'm done with their entitlement. They could have asked to visit. They could have requested to rent it for a week. Hell, if they'd approached me with respect and understanding, I might have even offered to let them use it occasionally. But instead, they tried to steal my house, traumatize children with their lies, and destroy my family in the process. I've blocked them all on everything. I'm proceeding with all legal charges. The restraining order should be in place by next week. My therapist, who I called for an emergency session, says what they did was criminal and abusive, and that I should feel no guilt for protecting myself and my property. Lisa has been my rock through this. She's fielded calls, helped me sort through the legal paperwork, and reminded me that I'm not crazy. We're planning to go to the beach house together next weekend to properly clean and reclaim it. She suggested a cleansing ceremony, burning sage and making new memories to override the violation. I know I'll likely never have a relationship with my father or brother again. That ship hasn't just sailed, they set it on fire and sank it. My mother might be salvageable someday, but not while she's enabling them. The extended family can think what they want, they've shown their true colors. My grandmother left me that house because she knew I'd cherish it, respect it, and find peace there. I failed to protect it once, but never again. It's mine, legally and morally, and I'll be damned if I let anyone make me feel guilty for that. To anyone dealing with entitled family, document everything. Change your locks. Install cameras. Get a lawyer. And don't, for 1 second, feel guilty about protecting what's yours. Family isn't about blood, it's about respect, love, and boundaries. Anyone who tries to violate those isn't family worth having. Final edit, 1 month later. The legal update you've all been asking for. The restraining order was granted against all 3 of them, my father, Michael, and Jennifer. They're not allowed within 500 feet of the property or me personally. Michael tried to contest it, claiming it was excessive and would prevent family gatherings. The judge, after reviewing the security footage and forged moving documents, called their actions a premeditated attempt at theft through deception and upheld the order. Criminal charges are moving forward. The DA is taking this seriously, especially the forgery. Michael is facing potential jail time, though his lawyer is pushing for a plea deal. My father is being charged as an accomplice. Jennifer is somehow trying to claim she was just following her husband's lead, but the prosecutor has her on video directing movers with my belongings, so that's not flying. The civil lawsuit is ongoing. My lawyer is confident we'll recover damages plus legal fees. The moving company is cooperating fully. They're mortified they were used in this scheme and have provided all documentation showing Michael presented himself as the homeowner. Family fallout continues. My mother filed for separation from my father last week. She's staying with her sister and reached out through my aunt to apologize. She admitted she knew they were planning something but didn't think they'd go so far. I told her I need time but am open to rebuilding our relationship eventually, just the two of us, without my father's influence. The extended family drama has mostly died down since the criminal charges were filed. Funny how family should share becomes, well, they shouldn't have broken the law when actual consequences appear. Michael's in-laws apparently read him the riot act after learning he involved their grandchildren in a criminal scheme. The house is slowly feeling like mine again. Lisa and I have spent every weekend there, making new memories. I fixed the wall damage, reorganized everything exactly how I want it, and even added some new security features. The sage cleansing actually helped, probably just psychological, but the house feels cleaner somehow. My therapist has been incredible. We're working through not just this incident but years of family manipulation I hadn't fully recognized. Turns out this wasn't the first time they tried to take what was mine, just the most dramatic. Last weekend, I found one of Christopher's toy cars under the deck. Instead of anger, I just felt sad. Those kids are victims too, fed lies and used as weapons. I've set aside money in a trust for them, not accessible by their parents, for when they're adults. Maybe then we can have a relationship built on truth. I've also started a journal, writing letters to my grandmother about everything that's happened. I tell her about the sunrise surf sessions, the books I read on her deck, the way her wind chimes still sing in the evening breeze. I thank her for knowing I'd need this place and for trusting me with it. To everyone who shared their own stories of family entitlement and boundary violations, thank you. Your experiences helped me feel less alone and more justified in my response. To those who said I should have just given them the house to keep the peace, I hope you never have to learn firsthand why that's terrible advice. Enabling entitlement doesn't create peace, it creates monsters who'll demand more. The house is mine. The peace is returning. The family I lost wasn't worth keeping. And somewhere, I think my grandmother is proud that I stood my ground. Thank you all for following this journey. I'm closing this chapter now and looking forward to many peaceful weekends by the sea, exactly as my grandmother intended.